Walk on over to Walters this Saturday night to watch the DC Defenders try and capture the UFL championship against the Michigan Panthers. Kickoff is at 8 p.m.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking ball in high in the air to right field. Call going back. Warning track at the wall. He will watch it get out. A home run for Juan Soto. Towering fly ball leaves the park over the 370-foot marker and down into the Mets bullpen. Juan Soto continues his tear. That is home run number 13. The homers for the second straight night. RBIs 34 and 35. Here at the bottom of the third with 2 out, it's the Mets 3 and the Nationals nothing.
1-1 to Nimmo. Swinging a fly ball sky, deep left center field. Young tracking it back to the warning track. He times his leap and he jumps and it's gone. It just carries up into the breeze, over the wall at the 370 mark in left center. And it's 4-0 New York. Solo shot for Nimmo, number 11. Young looked to be tracking it. Then he tried to climb the wall but didn't get nearly high enough.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. So the Nationals, per Brooksgate, as of games through June 8th, were number 1 in the majors in wins as a betting underdog in this regular season, believe it or not. But that did speak to something that we had talked about on the podcast, the Nats playing well against good competition. Unfortunately, things are not going so well, at least so far, in the team's 3-game series at the New York Mets. So Wednesday night, a 5-0 loss at the Mets. So this off Tuesday night's 5-4 10-inning loss at the Mets in a game in which the Nats blew a 4-2 8th-inning lead. The Nats now have lost 4 consecutive games now in this regular season, are 30 and 37. The Mets in this regular season now are an MLB best 44 and 24 with an MLB best team ERA of 2.82. Think about that. A team ERA under 3. The Nats team ERA, in case you're curious, is 4.89. Coming up later in the show, the latest on third baseman Brady House and the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings, from the voice of the Red Wings, the great Josh Whetzel. So the Nats on Wednesday night, no runs, just 6 hits, no walks, 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. The 6 hits, a double, and 5 singles. Mets starting pitcher David Peterson, a 6-hit shutout, 6 strikeouts, no walks. The Nats now, since scoring at least 9 runs in each of 4 consecutive games, have totaled a mere 15 runs over 9 games. Mark, you think about the timing of this series, the Nats struggling offense against the Mets' great pitching. Not exactly ideal timing.
No, a horrible matchup and horrible timing for that matchup to take place. But as you point out, this has been going on since before the Mets series. You just said it, 15 runs since then. It goes even a little further than that. So remember, they scored 11 runs in the first 2 innings of that game in Arizona and then didn't score after that. So that's now 15 total runs scored in 87 innings. That is a shockingly low total for them. They finally got to 4 runs in a game for the first time on Tuesday night in what wound up being a loss. Everything else has been 3, 2, 1, or 0, which we've seen multiple times now. And to me, the things that stand out, they're not drawing walks. 13 walks in their last 9 games. I mean, that's ridiculously low. And they've stopped hitting homers. You know, we talked about how this has become a decent power hitting team, kind of ranked in the middle of the league in terms of home runs, which for them is a huge upgrade from last year. Well, they've now only hit 5 homers in their last 9 games. And all of a sudden, they rank 21st in the majors in home runs. They're stuck on 65 right now. So they've played 67 games. That's fewer than 1 homer per game. Yes, improvement from last year, but it has taken a big drop off in the last 2 weeks where all of a sudden it's really a problem because, as we see, you don't draw walks and everything else is singles. Like, it's hard to score runs to manufacture that way. They need some big blasts. I mean, Luis Garcia almost hit one out in this game, But there's been very little. And you saw in this game, it was ground ball, ground ball, ground ball against David Peterson.
Yeah, I had that on my items of topics for this show. What has happened to the home run? Because that was such an encouraging thing from this Nats team as of just a few weeks ago. And lately, the homers have dried up, to say nothing of the walks like you talked about. And, you know, you think about the Nats. I mean, sometimes a team is struggling offensively because the team is missing some key bats due to injury. The Nats right now are pretty healthy in terms of position players. I mean, you have Dylan Cruz on the 10-day injured list. You have Paul DeJong on the 10-day injured list, neither of whom has exactly killed it so far offensively this season. So, you know, the bats that had been going well are available to the Nats right now, and just things are not happening. You know, we saw, say, C.J. Abrams in game one of this series do really well, but he did not do much of anything in this game on Wednesday night. Really, nobody did much of anything. The Nats in this game had 6 hits. 4 of the 6 hits came from just 2 guys, James Wood and Luis Garcia Jr. Wood is the Nats starting left fielder and number 3 batter, went 2 for 4 with 2 singles. Garcia as the Nats starting second baseman and number 8 batter, 2 for 3 with a double and a single. And that essentially was it for the Nats offense. And not to harp on Wood because he has been so good, but, you know, we have seen with Wood lately, the offense dry up to an extent and the power really dry up to an extent. You know, he's still doing some good things, but he's not hitting for power like he had been. And it's unfair because it shouldn't all be on him, but because he had been so good and because this team is like starving for offense right now, it stands out that James Wood right now is not the James Wood of, say, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, and it also shows you the lack of depth in the lineup where they really do need him to be a part of it. It's hard to overcome James Wood not producing for you, just as it's hard to overcome when C.J. Abrams is not producing for you. So, I mean, they need others to come through, and they just don't really have that, especially in the power department right now. He's hitting a lot of ground balls. He's chasing. He swung at some bad pitches in this game. He wasn't the only one. Everybody took some bad swings against David Peterson. It feels like he's not quite as patient as he has been recently. And you understand it's going to happen. Everybody, I don't care how good you are, is going to go through some kind of slump. It's a matter of can you get out of it and before letting it turn into a really prolonged slump. And, you know, there's a difference between a slump because the results are bad and a slump because the process is bad. I think the process is still pretty good. As I said, he's chasing somewhat, not drawing the walks the way that he used to. Probably stay a little more patient and he'll be okay. But I mean, he did hit a couple balls hard in this game. He scorched one of his hits, you know, just happened to be on the ground and it's not happening in the air. You hope this doesn't last long because they desperately need him, but you also understand that they need other guys to come through for them. And right now, who's like the guy on this team in this lineup that you point to and say, there's the one who's going to carry us. There's the one who's going to give us the big lift out of this. It's James Wood and probably C.J. Abrams. That's really all you're thinking about at this point, right?
Yeah, and Abrams has been struggling for a while now, and save for what he did on Tuesday night, really has not done much for a good long while now. You know, it's interesting looking at the Nats lineup for this game on Wednesday night. The designated hitter and number 4 batter was a guy who the team just called up from AAA Rochester in Andres Chaparro. And that says a lot about the lack of depth in this lineup. I mean, you're playing a game at the Mets, and I know the Mets spent a ton of money. The Nats do not spend a ton of money, but the Mets cleanup batter is Pete Alonso, and the Nats cleanup batter is a guy who they just called up for Rochester and Andres Chaparro. And look, Chaparro can hit, and maybe he helps to bolster this offense, but that says a lot that a guy who you just called up for Rochester is your cleanup batter in a big game like this. The other thing that stood out to me, Riley Adams again got the start at catcher. He was the Nats starting catcher, and number 7 batter went 0 for 3 with a strikeout. Now, David Peterson, a lefty, I get that, but man, it does stand out here. Over these last few games, we are seeing a good bit of Riley Adams and not nearly as much of Keibert Ruiz as we are accustomed to seeing.
That is absolutely true. Some of it is the left-handed matchup. Some of it is an acknowledgement that Keibert Ruiz, as we've discussed, has not been hitting. But let me tell you something. Riley Adams isn't hitting at all. He's now batting for the season 100 with an OPS of 340. That's not an on-base percentage. That's an OPS on-base plus slugging of 340. That is not good. Now, I heard Kevin Franson on the broadcast refer to the fact that the team has a winning record. The games that he starts, it's a credit to his work behind the plate, which I do think is much improved. But you need some kind of production offensively from him. And I think it's pretty telling that Keibert Ruiz is going so bad right now that the thought is, well, let's try to give Riley Adams some more starts, despite the fact that his offensive production is even worse. probably the worst on the team if you really think about it, at least among anybody who's played with any regularity for them. They have a catching problem. This has been going on for a few years now. They don't have somebody that you can look at and say, hey, here's a viable alternative to this. They've tried Drew Millis a little bit. He's not hit at the big league level. There's nobody waiting in the wings to come up here. I mean, they're kind of stuck with this, and I don't know how you get out of it other than hoping these guys can turn it around. You hope Keibert Ruiz, because of the contract, that he is ultimately going to become more of a productive hitter than he is. Riley Adams has been around a while now, and I know he doesn't get a lot of at-bats, and that's a tough spot to be in. But for a guy who we think of should be a productive hitter, like there was all this talk of, hey, he should DH more, he should play first base. Look at the production. It's very little from him to suggest that he is worthy of more significant playing time. They're in a bad spot right now at that position.
Yeah, well, some of us advocated for the Nats to sign a veteran catcher this past offseason, and the Nats did no such thing. And so they have probably the worst catching situation in the majors right now. Like, I don't know that that's a stretch to say that. Name me a team that is worse at catcher when you talk about offensive production and defensive production. You look at qualified Nats players for this regular season in terms of OPS. So James Wood is number one at 897. That does stand out, though, because that OPS had been well into the 900s. It now is in the 800s. CJ Abrams is down to 808. Again, he had been in the 900s, now is down to the low 800s. Luis Garcia Jr. at 716. Nathaniel Lowe, 666. Keibert Ruiz, 612. Josh Bell, 608. It really is just not enough offense. Even with the uptick in homers as of, a week or so ago, this still has not been an imposing offensive team this season when you look at overall production. Like, with a Josh Bell, 9 home runs, yes, but the 608 OPS is really bad. And, it's frightening to think, if James Wood does go into a true slump, I would not call what he's in right now a slump, but if God forbid he went into a slump or got hurt, imagine what this offense would be like right now.
They'd be in really bad shape for sure. And yeah, it speaks to the lack of depth. I mean, you mentioned Chaparro hitting cleanup in this game. Why was he hitting cleanup? Because they didn't trust Josh Bell. They thought, hey, we're facing a lefty tonight. Let's try to get our right-handed bat that we just called up to face him. And oh, by the way, he's going to hit cleanup. And, who's behind him? Nathaniel Lowe, left-handed bat. Alex Call batting 6th, which is something we've seen here a few times. Riley Adams, for all the numbers I just outlined, he's still batting 7th for you because at least against the lefty, he's viewed as a better option than Luis Garcia, who did, to his credit, have 2 hits off the lefty. And then Jacob Young, who's batting 9th, and we know his offensive struggles. I mean, that's a pretty weak 4 through 9, especially given the matchup that they were facing. The other thing I want to talk about offensively, we've mentioned this throughout the season about how you can usually tell right away, is it going to be a good night or not? This was so obviously not going to be a good night when David Peterson cruised through the first couple of innings. It was 8 pitches at the top of the first, and then he retired to side again in the second. So I was thinking, all right, what stat can I try to figure out that might go along with that idea of that they get off to a bad start and they don't figure it out after that against a starter? So here it is, and I think it's really telling. In their first time up against an opposing starter, the team has a 759 OPS. That's 6th best in the majors, first time through. And that points out all the nights that they do have some success and they do it right away. And we know there are nights that they don't have it and then they don't figure it out. Well, here's the thing. So they're 6th in the majors, first time up, second time through the lineup against a starting pitcher. The OPS drops from 759 to 605. That's 29th in the majors. Okay. Typically, a team's numbers go up each time you see a starter. Look across the league averages go up from the first to the second to the third. The Nats goes down and goes down by a ton from the first to the second time. It speaks to this lack of adjustments. It speaks to once an opposing starter has figured out how to get them out, that they are not able to come up with a new plan and that opposing pitcher is exploiting their weaknesses. And you saw it from Peterson. Ground ball, ground ball, ground ball. He just kept pounding the ball down in the zone, and they could not elevate it at all against him. That, to me, is the story of this offense. Is, yes, there are nights they look great. Go back to the West Coast trip and all that. But most of that was done in the first couple of innings, and you knew it was going to be a good night. When they don't do it right away, they have shown no ability to make adjustments and figure a guy out along the way.
Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. We're midway through the year, and for many people, that means summer vacation is coming up. Will your windows keep your home protected while you're away? Save yourself the headache of coming home to a potential break-in by replacing your windows today with Window Nation windows. Right now, when you buy 4 windows, you get 4 windows free, plus you get a free exterior door when you purchase a house full of windows. And on top of that, you won't have to put any money down, pay any interest, or deal with any monthly payments for 24 months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. In this economy, what Window Nation is offering right now is a great deal. Your electricity bill is another good indicator of how well your windows are working, especially with summer temperatures here to stay. Lucky for you, Window Nation offers top quality, energy efficient vinyl windows built to withstand the sun's heat and keep your home cool. And did I mention that Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty? Don't miss your chance to protect and upgrade your home with Window Nation windows. Buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free now through June 30th. And remember, you won't pay a thing for 24 months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Tim Shover's here to tell you about Babbel. Did you know that the Nats are on the Spanish radio airwaves for the 2nd consecutive season?
Joven. Batazo fuerte por la línea izquierda. La bola se va, se va. Se fue la fruta. Home run, Andrés Chaparro.
If you want to know what Luciano and Gustavo are saying on the broadcast on calls such as this one, then check out Babbel. And here's their special offer for Nats Chat listeners. 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/NatsChat. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/NatsChat. That's spelled BABBEL.com/NatsChat. Babbel.com/NatsChat. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, fellas, I need you to stop what you're doing and go download Prize Picks if you haven't already. Because once you download Prize Picks and use code BACKYARD, you get $50 on us once you place the first $5 lineup. And in that lineup, the reason I love it so much, because all you have to do is place more or less on whatever player you want to rock with that night. And you can do it for as many players or as little players as you like. And it doesn't matter if I'm watching basketball, hockey, golf, baseball, esports, doesn't matter. I can put them all in my lineup. The reason I like firing on Prize Picks so much during the summer is because I travel all the time, and Prize Picks is available in more than 28 states, including California, which I love summers in California. So I can fire on Prize Picks with all my friends and swear out the games with them. And it doesn't matter what we're watching, we always get to enjoy the game a little bit more. And lastly, fellas, there's also a special going on during basketball playoffs. Every time you do a $5 3-pick basketball flex play during the playoffs, you automatically get entered in the Prize Picks sweepstakes for courtside tickets to the finals. So download the app today and use code BACKYARD to get $50 instantly after you play the first $5 lineup. That's code BACKYARD to get $50 instantly after you play the first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
The left-hander steps, kicks, and delivers. Swinging a line drive on one hop to third. It's fielded by Beatty. He'll throw it across to first in time. David Peterson pumps his fist. He's got his first shutout in the major leagues. He goes the distance for a 5-0 win. The first Mets complete game shutout from a lefty since Steven Matz 6 years ago.
You can always email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. From Alec, honestly, what will it take for the Nats to shake up the coaching staff? Darnell Coles has not been good and should be fired. And this isn't an angry rant, but there are stats and figures to show that he has been one of, if not the worst hitting coach in MLB. And Mark just ran through one of those stats/figures. Look, we've had the Darnell Coles conversation plenty of times. I think it's one thing to say that the results are bad. It's another thing to say that the process is bad. And some of what you were just speaking about does speak to bad process. Now, look, when the Nats were hitting homers and doubles and the offense was going well and you had at least 9 runs in each of 4 consecutive games, we said, well, maybe Darnell Coles isn't all bad. But now things are bad, quite bad with this offense. And the concern that I've always had, and that I think a lot of people have had, is this. So you have these, in theory, blue chip talents in James Wood and Dylan Cruz and eventually Brady House. And, you also have well-regarded guys like Robert Hassel III, Daylen Lile, etc. If they're not getting really good coaching, that's a problem. You want to give these guys the best possible coaching in order to maximize their talents. And that has always been my thing with Darnell Coles. I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes. None of us do. What is he advocating? What is he not advocating? We don't know. But internally, if you're Mike Rizzo, if you don't think that your blue chip talent is getting the best possible coaching, then you do need to make a change. And so I am interested to see if the offensive struggles continue. Does Darnell Coles take the fall, or does the organization more view it as the guys who we have on the field right now just aren't very good?
It's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. I really don't know. And as we've discussed, especially when it comes to hitting coaches and pitching coaches, it's so hard to know how much difference they truly make. It's easy to look at a team when it's going well and say, well, they must be getting good coaching. And then when it's not going well, say it must be the coach's fault, when ultimately it is, the player's fault. I think I mentioned during that road trip one night, Robert Hassel saying, and this was unprompted from him, saying how impressed he was with the daily scouting report that Darnell Coles and Chris Johnson, his assistant, were giving the hitters in their pregame meeting, and that what they were saying the opposing starter was going to do was exactly what they did. And then it was up to the hitters to convert on that or not. And they did for those 4 games. That it was phenomenal. Now, they haven't done it since. Has the scouting reports changed? I mean, I think they knew what David Peterson was going to do against him in this game. Were they telling them to hit a bunch of ground balls? No, I don't think they were. Now, to me, the troubling part is the lack of adjustments along the way in game. And again, I can't speak to if that's the coach not doing something or if it's the players not being able to do it. Either way, it's not a good sign. You need that to be better. You need young players to get better. You need the veterans that you do have to show those kind of veteran qualities that you need. As we've talked about, there's not a whole lot else waiting in the wings. Yes, Brady House at some point is going to come up, and that will help them, you hope, in some regard. I do think Dylan Cruz, when he comes back, is going to help. I know he wasn't hitting a ton, but I think he's more of a threat at the plate and certainly more potential for improvement than some of the others they have. But for the most part, this is the group that they're going with. And one way or another, they're going to have to figure it out. And if they don't, it's perfectly appropriate to ask if changes need to be made. Do I think that happens in season? That's a tough call because, number one, you got to have somebody else around or in mind who you think can make an instant difference. I don't know if they have that. And then number two, in-season changes are usually a reflection of somebody high above saying, this team should be better. We think we should be winning. And so I'm going to make a bold move in the middle of the season to try to shake it up because I think we can start to win more games. Do the higher-ups believe that this team should be winning more right now? I don't know the answer to that. I think the GM wants to win more. Does he deep down believe that they should be winning more? I don't know. And I certainly don't know whether ownership went into this season believing that they should be winning more or not. So I think that's what it boils down to. But as with all these, you have to evaluate it along the way. And if nothing happens in season, you certainly have to evaluate it at the end of the season and say, can we do better? Why are we not seeing improvement if you're not seeing that? Is it all because of the talent, because of the players, or could a different message from somebody else make a difference?
There's a key point, too, I think, with Brady House, and that is, once House and Cade Cavalli are called up to the majors, that's kind of it for this generation of well-regarded Nats prospects. And it's going to be at least a year, probably 2 years, until that next generation starts to be brought up to the majors. You think about a Luke Dickerson, a Seaver King, Harleen Susana, etc. So, yeah, to the point of what you were just saying, this is kind of what you're working with. House will add to it. But at that point, then the onus really is on James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Brady House, C.J. Abrams, Luis Garcia Jr., Keibert Ruiz, etc., to work out or to not work out. We're kind of coming to the end here of this latest run of, I can't wait until he's called up. Once House is called up, that's pretty much it for position players in terms of, again, this latest quote-unquote generation of well-regarded Nats prospects. Well, the Nats starting pitcher in this 5-0 loss at the Mets on Wednesday night was Jake Irvin. You almost feel silly complaining about the Nats pitching in this game as they got shut out. But Irvin right now is not in a great place. He allowed 4 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 5 hits, 4 of which were extra base hits. He gave up 2 home runs and 2 doubles. He issued 3 walks and a hit by pitch, recorded 4 strikeouts, threw 100 pitches, 61 strikes, 39 balls. So Irvin in the bottom of the 3rd gave up a 2-out, 2-run homer by Juan Soto to right field for a 3-0 Mets lead as Soto homered for a second time in as many games in this series. And Irvin in the bottom of the 5th gave up a leadoff opposite field home run by Brandon Nimmo to left center field for a 4-0 Mets lead. So Jake Irvin now, over his last 3 starts, has allowed 13 runs in 15 innings. I still would say he overall this season has been more good than bad, but we have not seen the best of Jake Irvin in his recent outings.
No, not recently. And we're kind of back into that part where he's not getting a lot of swings and misses that we saw from him for a while that was a little bit concerning. In this one, the pitch count was super high. He was well into the 70s in the 4th inning, to the point that I even wondered, are you going to send him back out there for the 5th or not? And they did, but he ends up with an even 100 pitches in 5 innings. That's not usually who he is. He's the workhorse who can get you to the 7th or even the 8th because he throws a lot of strikes. He was not in this game doing that, had the 3 walks, had a hit by pitch as well. And then the home runs, I mean, that Soto pitch was a curveball on a platter for Juan Soto. I mean, Soto doesn't need it to be on a platter to do damage, but you give him a pitch like that, you know what's going to happen. And the shame is that Irvin had 2 really good encounters with him before and after. It struck him out in the previous 2, but he needed to be better with that pitch in particular. And just in general, just looked off. You know, it's a tough lineup he's facing, yes, but he missed location a lot. He drove up the pitch count a lot. And when they made contact, it was big. We just talked about the Nats, everything into the ground, and it was all singles when they did get hits. The Mets, it was all doubles and homers. They elevated the ball and they drove it to the deep to the outfield with some authority against Jake Irvin. And, you know, all of a sudden the ERA is at 4.21. It's hard to call that a good season for him. He's had good moments for sure, but the consistency factor is not there right now.
No, it's tough. I mean, after Mackenzie Gore, who do you really trust in this rotation at this moment? You know, there are things to like with guys. And, you know, aside from Trevor Williams, I wouldn't say that any Nats starting pitcher is having like a really bad season. But, you know, you're not overwhelmed by the numbers for Jake Irvin or Mitchell Parker or Michael Soroka. So, you know, we'll see as the season plays out here. But right now, there's an element of, you know, Mackenzie Gore and pray for rain because, you know, the pitching at times has been good, but to what you were just saying, you know, with Irvin here, like the numbers are not overwhelming. Now, again, I do feel like in watching Irvin, he has been more good than bad. I think there have been a good number of good outings from him this season. These last 3 outings have kind of skewed things a little bit, but the numbers are what they are, and the numbers are not great.
Yeah, it's a matter of consistency. I think with all those guys, because they all have their moments. We've seen Mitchell Parker look really good at times. We've seen Michael Soroka look pretty good. And with him, it's even consistency within the start. He can look great for a while and then lose it. That's why I think the last start that he made was very encouraging. And I'm really interested to see what he does on Wednesday against this good Mets lineup. Can he continue that and put together another good one? Then I start to feel like he's, you know, the number 2 guy at the moment behind Gore, at least in terms of who you feel gives you the best chance. Aside from Williams, for the most part, they're all giving them a chance. They haven't been awful, but there have been very few games outside of Mackenzie Gore where you would say that the starter won the game for them. They usually pitch well enough to give them a chance, and maybe they come up with the win depending on the offense. But when the lineup is going as bad as it is right now, you need more than just giving you a chance. You need what Mackenzie Gore has done, which is go out there and win us this game. And if you score me 2 runs, I'm going to make sure that's enough. It's a tough ask, but all these guys have shown an ability to do that at some point along the way, just not with any consistency besides Mackenzie Gore.
Tim Shovers here for LinkedIn Jobs. Before I get to the promo code for small business owners who want to grow their staff, allow me to talk about a job in DC that I think needs to be filled by the right person. It is time to bring up Brady House from AAA and have him start at third base every day for the Nationals. I'm not entirely sure of the corresponding roster move, and the odd man out very well might be Ahmed Rosario. But let's give House a shot with the Nats at the hot corner. Anyways, if you need to make a crucial hire like your everyday third baseman, Post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And the pitch swung on in high in the air, deep to right, way back toward the corner is Alex Cole. It's going, and gone. Goodbye. In and out of the first row of the second deck, the fan couldn't hold it. It dropped back down, and Brandon Nimmo has homered in consecutive at-bats in this game. Home run number 12. That's how he greets Jackson Rutledge on the second pitch thrown at the bottom of the seventh inning. It's now the Mets 5 of the Nationals nothing. The Mets' third home run of the night.
The Nats bullpen on Wednesday night, pretty good. Two Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 3 innings. Zach Brixey, a scoreless and hitless bottom of the 6th, and Jackson Rutledge allowed 1 run in 2 innings. Bottom of the 7th, he allowed a run on a leadoff homer by Brandon Nimmo to right field for a 5-0 Mets lead, and Rutledge in the inning also gave up a single and issued a hit by pitch, but he did then toss a perfect bottom of the 8th. As we saw the rare instance of a Nats reliever working 2 innings, but given that the Nats don't have any scheduled off days for a while, I would imagine we may see some of this from manager Davey Martinez in the coming days. You try to maximize what you can get from the bullpen, and so we in this game had the rare game in which the Nats only used 2 relievers.
I almost wouldn't have minded seeing Rutledge come out for the 6th and see if he could finish the job, and then you only use up 1 guy, and he'd be out for several days because of that. I don't think Brixey was burned up by throwing, 1 inning, 17 pitches. He'll be fine. But yeah, they do need to be more mindful of this. And that's where the 5 innings from Jake Irvin stands out, because that's not usually who he is. You're more worried about the next 3 starters not going deep in games. You kind of are counting on Irvin to give you at least 6, if not 7, because the domino effect on the bullpen. It probably means they need some more out of Soroka on Wednesday. You hope he can get you through the 6th like he did the last time. We'll see, but right now it's like they need perfect pitching to make up for the offense. I feel like we can analyze these guys all we want, but it doesn't matter if the lineup isn't scoring runs. The only games they're winning these days are by the scores of 2-0, and that's a really hard way to go about this.
It is, for sure, and it's just remarkable, and we've talked about this, but every time the Nats start to get close to 500 and start to make you think that getting to 500 is coming, we see the team stumble. This team was at 30-33 just a few games ago. Here we are now, a 4-game losing streak, and the Nats are back to 7 games under 500 at 30-37. Now, there is that 7-game stretch coming up against 2 of the bottom feeders of the National League in the Miami Marlins and Colorado Rockies, so maybe the Nats can make hay in facing those 2 teams after this 3-game series at the Mets, but I don't know. It's so frustrating with this team. If you're a fan of this team and you're frustrated by the state of the rebuild, I get it. But just with the state of this season to where, okay, getting to 500 would be a nice accomplishment, right? Would make people feel appreciably better about things, I think. And they're not really close to that right now. Like 7 games under, that's a tough place to be. And, if you're thinking, well, can the Nats get to 500 by the All-Star break? That's certainly possible. I would not be dismissive of that, but it's not going to be easy at this point with this team at 30-37 right now.
No, it's not. I think that next homestand, like we've been talking about, is kind of the critical juncture. Like if they have a bad homestand against those teams, I think you really start to worry about the state of affairs. If they can have a good homestand and all of a sudden you're closer to 500, I think that changes the narrative a lot going out west and then towards the All-Star break. Let's also remember they put themselves in a huge hole to start the year at 1-6. So if you look since then, that's 29-31. So they're almost a 500 team for that stretch. Now, of course, you have to count the whole thing. You can't throw out one bad week. It all counts the same in the end. I do feel like I don't think this is a bad team, but they're certainly not a good team. They are an inconsistent team, number one. And I think the end result of that is that they're just right in the middle, mediocre. if they could go on one of those surges that we've been talking about, I think it would change the mindset, change the narrative a whole lot, because we can analyze the winning streaks, the losing streak, and say, well, they're down right now, then they were up and all that. For the most part, they're playing relatively around 500 now over a long stretch. But what they're lacking is that one surge that gets them back, makes up for the initial 1-6, gets them around the 500 mark. And if they got there and then just kind of stayed there the rest of the year, I think we'd feel a lot differently about this team than we do right now.
Psychologically, I think it would be huge. I really do. And right now, as a fan of the team, you need all of the psychological uplifting you can get with where things are here. So we'll see. Michael Soroka, Game 3 of this series, Thursday afternoon at 1:10. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening to the Nats Chat Podcast, and we leave you now with the latest on third baseman Brady House in the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings, from the voice of the Red Wings, Josh Whetzel.
And now the 1-1. House pulls a ground ball wide of third into left field for a hit. Arruda hits third, is being waved around. Almora's throw is not attempted. Arruda scores standing, and it's 3-1 Red Wings on Brady House's RBI single. Well, things have been a little bit unusual for the Red Wings lately. They had won 7 straight after sweeping a homestand over the Columbus Clippers. And now, at the time I'm recording this, the Red Wings have lost 7 in a row and are coming off a sweep at the hands of the Worcester Red Sox. As far as some individual performers for the Wings of late, Brady House continues to do well. He's hitting .298 on the year and is tied for 4th in the International League with 12 home runs. He's 2nd in the league with 71 hits and now 9th in the league in slugging percentage with a .517 mark. Darren Baker, after a very slow start to the season, has heated up over his last 15 games. He's hitting .379, lifting his batting average up to .250 on the season. Daylen Lile in his first 3 games since getting optioned from the Nationals, 2 for 11 with a double. He's now batting .337 with a .903 OPS in his 21 at AAA games this season. And Yo-Yo Morales, former second-round pick out of the University of Miami, in his first 14 games in AAA, is hitting .182 with 1 home run. On the pitching front, Parker Dungy was signed to a minor league deal earlier this season by the Nationals. A man who pitched a little bit in the big leagues last year with Atlanta has really been pitching well of late out of the Wings bullpen. His last 7 games, he's allowed only 1 run on 7 hits in 8 2/3 innings. And Jack Sinclair, coming off a really good season in 2024 in AA, has started to round into form. He has not allowed a run over his last 7 appearances, allowing just 4 hits while striking out 10 batters in 7 2/3 innings. Cade Cavalli's last start, very good. Sunday against an outstanding Worcester team. He pitched 5 shutout innings, allowed 2 hits, had no walks. That's just the 3rd professional start for Cavalli in which he pitched at least 5 innings with no walks, and his velocity was up. He averaged around 97 miles an hour with his fastball in that start on Sunday. This is Josh Whetzel with the Rochester Red Wings update. Wings have 2 on for Drew Millis, and the pitch is a breaking ball poked out to shallow center, and that will flutter in for a base hit. Morales waved around third. No throw attempted. Morales scores standing, and the Wings take a 1-0 lead. Millis flared that into center.
If you're frustrated with low sex drive, Vyleesi can help. Vyleesi, or bremelanotide, treats low sex drive in women with no daily medication, no alcohol restrictions, and no hormones. Vyleesi is clinically proven to increase your interest in sex. Take control of your sex life on your terms and visit Vyleesi.com to schedule a telemedicine appointment. That's VYLEESI.com. Vyleesi is a prescription medicine used to treat hypoactive sexual desire disorder, HSDD, in premenopausal women who have not had problems with low sexual desire in the past and have low sexual desire no matter the type of sexual activity, situation, or partner. The low sexual desire is troubling to them and is not due to medical, mental health, or relationship problems, or medicine or other drug use. Do not use Vyleesi if you have uncontrolled hypertension or known heart disease. The most common side effects include nausea, flushing, injection site reactions, headache, and vomiting. Consult your healthcare professional for more information and see full PI at Vyleesi.com or call 800-922-1038. Go to Vyleesi.com for a telemedicine appointment to find out if Vyleesi is right for you. That's VYLEESI.com.